Mission U was held for 3 days at Manchester University, a wonderful place for gathering. We wanted to come and find the quiet center in the crowded lives that we lead.
Hi, my name's April Bailey. I am the Student Ministry Director at First UMC of LaGrange. And this past summer in June, I went down to Mission U to be their youth study leader. And that was a great experience.
I decided to go this summer because I had used to be very involved in UMW, and it just really worked out that I could go that weekend. And it was very much spur of the moment, but I decided that that's what I wanted to do and just to try to become more involved.
And I led the 4 plenaries for the adults. And the theme was about hope, building hope in our lives today.
Mission U was really fun. We had a great time. Yeah, I think. These two were my helpers. So they came down with me early and they helped set up the classroom. On Friday, I picked Josie up, Layden and I did, and we headed down to Manchester University. And we got there about 10 o'clock in the morning so we could unload all the supplies and get the classroom set up. And the kids were really a big help. I don't think they realized how much they were going to have to help, but they helped unload the car. They helped me unload the classroom stuff. And once everything was unloaded, I gave them some free time. I had packed board games for the kids in case we had some downtime. So I think they ended up playing Yahtzee for the afternoon, which Josie said she had never played or only had played once. And then we had our opening planetary at 6:45.
One of my favorite songs was Turning Over Tables, which was not a familiar song to the ladies, but actually that's what we need to do, is to turn over tables within our own lives and within the lives of our community and within the lives of the world. In the song Turning Over Tables, fear runs deep, spreading like a virus. Hate is cheap. From afar it costs you nothing. And sister, take my hand. Brother, we will stand. Open up your heart and find love is turning tables. If you remember, Jesus went into the temple and turned over tables. And that's what we need to do in our lives.
After that, the kids came down to our room, and we just spent the rest of Friday, we just spent getting to know each other. I had 6 kids in my group. 2 of them were Layden and Josie, and then the other 4 were from around the state.
There were 2 boys, and then the rest of them were girls. One of the kids I connected with was Robert, and he was the only other boy. I was really nervous about being the only boy.
It was really neat to meet other kids from around the state and work with them. I really enjoyed it. And one of the girls in my group, her name was Serenity, she was from Newburgh, which is on the west side of Evansville, and I'm very familiar with because I grew up around Evansville. So I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, I know Newburgh. And she was like, what? And then I said, well, I'm from Mount Vernon on the other side of Evansville. And she's like, well, my grandparents are from Mount Vernon. And I was like, well, what a small world. That was kind of neat. And then one of our other kiddos is an immigrant from the East Congo. So that was really awesome to meet her. And she was a sweet, sweet girl. She had a little bit of a language barrier yet with English, but she used Google Translate and just really wanted to be a part of the group. The kids were really good about including her in the group. And I think she had a really good time. Funny story is we were sitting outside on Sunday. We had some free time and we were sitting outside playing Frisbee and just talking and having a good time. And I asked her what her environment was back home. Like, is it woods, forest, or is it desert? Is it grassland? Because, I don't know. And there's a lot of different ecosystems in Africa. And she goes, no, it's kind of like this. We have woods and everything. And she goes, and I said, do you like the cold here? And she said, oh, yeah, I really like the cold. And I said, oh, not me. I said, I'd love to live somewhere where it was hot all the time. And she goes, oh, in Africa, it is hot all the time. I did not like it.
So I got to be roommates with Josie, and then we hung out a little bit in our room. And so Josie and I talked a little bit, and she shared her Bible, her new Bible that she had gotten. And she showed all the different colors and things that she was going to use for her Bible. And so we were talking about that a little bit. So that was fun. That was fun. And then Layden and I, we went down the way. The housing unit had a pool. And so he had never played pool before. And so I showed him how to play pool. And so, and trying to hold the stick right and hitting the balls and stuff. So that was fun.
So as we gathered at North Manchester, we wanted to reflect on the idea of sacred places. We pause to think of the Native Americans who settled this land, which is a place of hope and healing. We want to honor how the place has been used, but also the sadness of all the tragedy that has happened in that area and all over Indiana, of what we as the English came in and devastated their lands. And what was a refuge for them, we want now for that to be a refuge for us, and not a place of violence and conflict, a place where people were injured and died, and how this should be a place of hope for all peoples. Cindy was one of the ones who shared in this land acknowledgement. A time of refuge is the place, and then there was a new word that most people were unfamiliar with, and that was called refugia. And refugia is that place where, through environmental issues, people issues, have destroyed things, but there's that little thread of growth, that little thread of animals or plants that can be revived. And that's what we're looking at, is to be that refugia for all.
One of the meaningful things that I took away from the Mission U was the refugia and the concept of refugia, and tied concept of hope with refugia. And then in I'm still working on trying to understand it and to connect the ideas from refugia is something that when after a devastating event happens, that nature is able to heal itself, or certain things will be because of the destruction or the devastating event will come to life because of the destruction. And which is really kind of a cool concept. And then how that is part of our hope as Christians, because God is always with us. And even though we're going through maybe a hardship or whatever, that there is those refugia moments of where we have that hope, and that God never lets us go, and that he's always with us. And then also that we as Christians are refugia for the world, in that we are the hope for the world. And so even though things may look grim, we are that life, that to say God has not left us. It's a concept of not necessarily just a personal thing, but
Right.
But it's a global thing. So it can be
Right.
both.
When we first got down there and everybody came to the room, we did a activity where we had a whole bunch of pictures, of brave people, and then we had a sticky note that we could put on for the brave pictures. And I did some soldiers.
The first lesson was about creating a brave space. So we talked about the qualities of making a brave space. They made a covenant for their space of how to honor that. And one of the activities for that lesson was I posted pictures of examples of brave people. And then they had to take a Post-it note and put a Post-it note on which picture they thought represented bravery. And that was interesting to see what kids picked what. I had a variety of pictures up there, standard ones like first responders, soldiers, those types. And then I also had some from the Bible, which some of them they didn't recognize. Like I had a picture of Esther, because Esther was very brave. And I had a picture of David and Goliath, because David was very brave going up against Goliath. But then I also had Jesus up there, because Jesus was very brave. So all the kids pretty much picked the skydivers and the soldiers.
One of the plenaries that was very meaningful to me was the healing plenary. And we had a fountain running and pools of water in the grove. And each woman had a rock that she chose from the table. And on that rock, she was to put her anxieties, her worries, her fears, anything that was bothering her. And then through the worship time, they came up to the fountain, to a pool, put their rock in the pool, getting rid of all of those worries, those anxieties, and then they chose another rock of somebody's worries, anxieties, fears that they could pray for.
Jeannie went and had people get rocks, and then people were to go and put their burdens and everything on the rocks. Then she took those rocks and then put them in bowls of water or fountains or whatever. And then she had us come up and get rocks and to be praying for whoever's on the burdens that were placed on those rocks. So I think you were only supposed to take one, but I took about 3.
And then the curriculum focused on community. It was called A Community of Hope, and how to build a community, a Christian community. And it focused on Acts when the church was just getting started. So we talked about how community, it takes time to build a community. You need diversity.
You learned about how to be like a community with everybody.
Do you remember the Bible verses we were studying?
They were all in Acts.
That's basically what we talked about all day Saturday. Saturday after breakfast, we got together and we started our classroom time. We really dove into the scripture and the lessons, and the kids worked really hard. And I was really proud of the kids. They did phenomenal. They stuck with it and got everything done for the gallery walk.
And then we made a timeline from the
33, I think, 30 to 66, I'm pretty sure.
What's that timeline about?
The beginning of the church.
Part of that gallery walk was we did a timeline from the time of Pentecost to 66 CE. And that was the timeline of when the church was formed. And so we studied that and the things that happened during that time. And they made a timeline on the wall. And then they also made pictures of what, I divided them up into 2 groups, and they made pictures of what they thought the community was back then. So that was one of their displays. The other was they each had to make their own community. So I had all kinds of art materials out, magazines for them to cut up. They could draw, paint, and they all made their own communities, and that was really interesting.
Oh, made pictures of like we had groups of 3 and we had 2 of them, and each group made a picture of like a community. And then we each made our own communities, that what we think a community would look like.
Mine was a farm because I think a community should be peaceful.
While the kids were making their communities, I told them that I didn't make one on paper, but I've always said that if I could create my own community or world, it would be a big musical. We would all be living in a big musical, and when we had a confrontation, we would deal with it in a dance battle and a sing-off. That would be my community. I think your biggest interaction with the adults was the gallery walk, because you guys had to showcase everything you learned, right?
Yeah.
And what you did, and I didn't help you out at all. You guys did a great job. So you guys explained the brave pictures and how we were talking about having a brave space, and then building a community of hope in Christ. Yeah. But that gallery walk, you guys did a really good job with that.
It was neat to see all the different things that the kids had made and what they had learned.
And you guys were nervous, weren't you?
Yeah.
A little bit. But once the adults came in, you did a really good job of explaining things, and the adults had questions and you answered them well. And yeah.
Everybody was doing like their own little presentation at the same time.
They talked to them as the adults came through. They would talk about their community and why they picked their certain things to have in their community. They also explained the brave space and how important it is to have a brave space. They did a really good job. I was really proud of them.
We all came together in one room, and Jeannie was the leader.
We did finger knitting, and I was able to do that, which I was very surprised about.
Oh yeah, he was all about that. Ooh, he figured that out like as fast as a person could. I never did figure it out. Oh my word, I think he had 8 of them made before the night was over.
And then the day that we did the finger knitting, we talked about untangling knots in our lives.
And Mary, the untier of knots, was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And there is a picture from the 1800s of Mary. And so the women were given at their table a whole rope of knots to untangle. Knots in our lives that have caused us stress, caused us worry, undue stress actually. And so at the table, the gals, including youth, were encouraged to untie those knots together. It was a real pleasure at that service, called the Intergenerational Service, that we had young people come, and April brought her group there, and they sat mixed up at the tables with the other ladies and were helping to untie the knots.
And people were untangling like big knots of like a whole bunch of yarn and string and stuff.
There were knots in their life, and they were untying the knots.
Yeah, and then we all had to help each other out with the knots.
At the beginning of that service, Josie opened with the prayer. It was great to have Josie and Layden as part of the service.
It might have been Saturday when I did a prayer in front of everybody.
Yes,
That
it
was
was
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah.
It was Saturday because Jeannie told me I was doing it.
She was super nervous,
Yeah.
but she did a great job.
April and Cindy Noward, who attended, also helped out in numerous ways, but as part of sharing scripture, sharing litanies, and so that was a real good experience for all, and it was fun to be able to work together and actually get to know both of them even better.
When Jeannie asked me to help him, I said I would do anything that she wanted to do because she was doing such a fantastic job with the plenary. So I just kind of jumped in there and did some prayers and did some readings for that. And so that was fun. And then Josie came and did a prayer and helped with the service too. And so she and I kind of did that together. And so that was a neat experience too.
And then Jeannie came to me and wanted me to help out with worship service on Sunday. And everybody knows in this church I'm nervous when I have to publicly speak, but I was strong for Josie because Josie said yes and she did well, and I thought I can do it too. So I was even part of worship service on Sunday. Yeah. And Layden served communion on Sunday, so he was part of it. So they actually not only came down to have some fun and learn about how to be a community of hope, they were helping out with worship service too. So, yeah. And then Sunday, we worked so hard on Saturday. I decided we'd just have free time. So we ended up playing games, went outside for a while. I had brought rocks to paint. So we painted rocks, and they put encouraging sayings on them. And then I told them to go back to their communities and put them out in the community for other people to find. After our free time and after lunch, we had the closing plenary worship, and Pastor Andrea Lance was preaching. So I asked if we could come up and be a part of that worship, listen, and they said fine. They said that was great.
One of the nice things was to share in the closing worship with communion, as Pastor Andrea gave the message and helped and was the one who led in the communion service.
And then they also had Layden, and then the other boy that was in our group, Robert, them two helped serve communion.
I did the grape juice, and then it said, "Oh, the blood of Christ poured out for you." I said that to everyone, and then when they dipped it in, that's when I said it.
And then after that, it was time to say goodbye, and I have to say I was a little sad because I didn't anticipate that. And the reason I was a little sad was because I had 4 youth here that I spent time with and got to know. And then I have to say goodbye. And it was just a great weekend of fellowship time. I really could feel God's presence there and his love. And it really was just a safe place to be, where you could be yourself.
I hope the town invites everyone, even the people that you don't really think should be in the town. I hope they invite them to stuff still.
Yeah, going along with that, I hope that the church invites other people from around the town to come do different things at the church.